Have you ever felt exhausted? Not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually? Like you're constantly fighting, striving, trying to make things work. But the more you try, the more things fall apart? Maybe you whispered, God, what else am I supposed to do? Why isn't this working? Where are you? What if the breakthrough you're searching for isn't on the other side of trying harder, but on the other side of letting go? Surrender isn't weakness. It's not giving up. It's not quitting on life or dreams or people. It's choosing to place your trust into the hands of the one who sees more than you ever could. And yet we resist surrender. Why? Because we're afraid. Afraid of what we'll lose. Afraid of not being in control. Afraid that if we let go, everything will fall apart. But what if it's the opposite? What if surrender is a place where true peace begins? What if the very thing you're trying to hold together is the thing God is asking you to place at his feet? In this video, we're going to explore why surrender isn't the end of strength, but the beginning of freedom. We'll look at people in Scripture who discovered the deepest beauty not when they fought harder, but when they laid it all down. And today, maybe God is gently asking you, will you trust me enough to let go? Because what you release to God, he never wastes. And what you surrender, he transforms. We don't like to admit it, but deep down, we all love control. We want to know what's next. We want things to go our way. We make plans, build routines, calculate outcomes. Not just because we're organized, but because we feel safer when we're in charge. But here's the hard truth. Control is an illusion. We can't control the people we love. We can't control the timing of our dreams. We can't control the outcomes of every decision. And when things start to unravel, we panic. We tighten our grip. We try to fix, force, or figure it all out. And in the process, we exhaust ourselves. Proverbs 3 verse 5 reminds us, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. But it's hard not to lean on what we think we know, isn't it? We've been taught that control means strength. But in God's kingdom, control isn't power, trust is. The longer we cling to control, the more we resist what God is doing beneath the surface. Because sometimes God disrupts our plans to protect us. Sometimes he closes doors we thought were right. Sometimes he removes things we thought we needed, so we can learn to need him more. Control feels safe, but surrender is where the real safety is found. Not in our plans, but in his hands. And he's asking gently, will you loosen your grip? Will you let me lead? Because the truth is, you were never meant to carry it all anyway. Sometimes it takes life falling apart for us to realize we were never in control to begin with. The job you thought was secure, gone. The relationship you poured everything into, shattered. The plans you prayed over didn't unfold the way you expected. And suddenly you find yourself asking, what now, God? Why did you let this happen? But maybe, just maybe, those moments of breaking are really moments of invitation. An invitation to stop trying to hold it all together. An invitation to stop pretending you're fine. An invitation to finally let go and let God step in. In 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9, God says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Did you catch that? Not in strength, not in performance, not in having it all together. His power is made perfect in our weakness. So when everything feels out of control, it's not proof that God has abandoned you. It may be the exact moment he's trying to draw you closer. Because surrender often comes when we run out of options, when we stop striving and start depending, when we say, God, I can't fix this, but I trust you can. The truth is your breaking point might be the birthplace of your breakthrough. So don't despise the season that brings you to your knees, because what feels like the end could be the beginning of a surrendered, spirit-led life. We often think of surrender as a sign of weakness, like waving a white flag in battle, like saying, "I've lost, I give up." But surrender to God is not defeat. It's trust. It's choosing to believe that God's plan is better than ours. Even when we don't understand it, the world says, push through, take control, don't let go. But Jesus said something very different. In Matthew 16, verse 24, he said, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." That's not a call to strive harder. It's a call to surrender deeper. Because surrender isn't the end of your story. It's where the real story begins. When you surrender, you stop fighting against God and start flowing with His will. You lay down your timeline, your expectations, your outcomes, and pick up peace. Surrender doesn't mean you'll never feel fear. It means you choose faith even when fear is present. It's saying, "God, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know you hold me." That's not weakness. That's courage. Think about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. He prayed, "Father, if it's possible, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22, verse 42. He didn't surrender because he had no power. He surrendered because he trusted the Father's will more than his own comfort. That's the kind of surrender that changes everything. That's the kind of surrender that sets your soul free. Faith isn't just believing God exists. It's trusting Him enough to let go. And often, the most powerful faith is born not in moments of clarity, but in moments of surrender. True faith says, even when I don't see the way, I'll still follow. Even when the outcome is unknown, I'll still obey. Hebrews 11, verse 1 tells us, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. You see, surrender isn't the absence of struggle. It's the decision to anchor your trust in a God who sees beyond the storm. It's in those quiet moments when your plans unravel, when the path disappears beneath your feet, that God invites you to say, "Not my will, but yours." And when you do, something shifts. Peace replaces panic. Rest replaces striving. Strength rises, not from self-effort, but from God's Spirit within you. That's what surrender makes room for, the supernatural. It opens the door for miracles. It invites God to move in ways you could never imagine. Think about Abraham. God asked him to leave his country, his comfort zone, his future plans, and go to the land I will show you. Genesis 12, verse 1. No map, no timeline, just trust. And through that surrender, God birthed a promise that would bless the world. That's what God can do when you let go of control and take hold of faith. Because sometimes your greatest breakthrough is just one surrender away. The Bible is filled with stories of people whose greatest moments came after surrender, not after success, not after achievement, but after they laid everything down. Let's look at a few of them. Of Abraham. God asked him to sacrifice Isaac, the very son he had waited decades for. It made no sense. It must have broken his heart. But Abraham obeyed, and in that moment of surrender, God not only provided a ram in the thicket, He revealed Himself as Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides. Genesis 22, now I know that you fear God. Surrender turned into revelation. Of Mary, a teenage girl, engaged, unprepared, and suddenly visited by an angel saying, "You will give birth to the Son of God." She could have run. She could have said no, but instead she whispered, "Let it be to me according to your word." Luke 1, verse 38. That surrender. And through it came the Savior of the world, of Jesus, in the Garden of Gethsemane, sweating drops of blood, knowing the cross awaited. Jesus prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22, verse 42. That wasn't weakness. That was perfect obedience. And through his surrender, the world received salvation. These stories aren't just ancient history. They're reminders that surrender isn't foolish. It's sacred. When you give God your yes, He writes stories through your life that reach farther than you can see. What if the very thing you're trying to control is the thing that's stealing your peace? We often hold tightly to our own plans, thinking they'll bring us stability. But the more we grip, the more anxious we become. Why? Because deep down, we know we're not in control. And that gap between our desire to manage life and our inability to do so creates tension in our soul. But there's good news. You don't have to carry it all. Psalm 55 verse 22 says, "Cast your burden on the Lord, and He will sustain you." Not tolerate you, not judge you, sustain you. That's what surrender does. It brings freedom. Freedom from the weight of expectation. Freedom from the fear of failure. Freedom from the endless striving to prove yourself. Because when you finally say, "God, I give this to you," something beautiful happens. You make space for His peace to enter. You make space for His rest to settle in your heart. You begin to walk lighter, not because life is easier, but because you've released a burden. True freedom is not found in having it all figured out. It's found in knowing the one who does. And He says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11 verse 28. You don't have to wait until you crash. You don't have to wait until you have no strength left. You can choose freedom now by choosing surrender. Because letting go isn't the end. It's where your healing begins. Maybe you've been holding on so tightly to your plans, your fears, your pain, that your soul has forgotten how to rest. Maybe surrender feels scary, because letting go means you're not in control. But what if you were never meant to be? What if the peace you long for is waiting on the other side of the very thing you're afraid to release? God isn't asking you to fix everything. He's asking you to trust Him with everything. He's whispering, "Lay it down, child. I can carry what's crushing you. I can heal what's hurting you. I can lead you where you can't see." Surrender isn't the end. It's the beginning of peace, of freedom, of walking hand in hand with the one who never lets go. So today, ask yourself, what am I still holding that God is asking me to release? And then let it go, not in fear, but in faith. Because surrender is not weakness, it's worship. And the one you surrender to is worthy